and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. As we go to air, the day is still April 1st, but I'm going to spare you guys a cruel, funny, or maybe just a lame April Fool's joke. I had actually lots of fun with the Facebook page. I'm going to link to it. I think it's public, so even if you're not on there, you can see what I did, and I think it resonated. And also last year we did a pretty cool thing with Joe. I'm going to link to that discussion. It's actually a short show, but it hurt me because she was taking it so seriously. Anyways, today, VR in Germany Part 4 with ZDF Digital Lab, which is a entity that is affiliated with public broadcaster ZDF, kind of the equivalent of PBS in the United States. But their digital lab offshoot is a company that does not eat up the fees that you have to pay here. When you live in Germany, you have to pay fees that then finance the broadcasting system, similar to the BBC, very different from PBS and NPR that have to go on the air and beg for money. I did that many years at the NPR station in Pacific Grove. What was fascinating, this happened in Frankfurt. I just came back from Frankfurt. I'm a little sleep deprived as I tape this intro. But there was a film fest, and 2 days of that film fest were dedicated to virtual reality. It was held in the Naxos Hall in Frankfurt, and it was small, but there were really compelling discussions, lectures on storytelling, on the pitfalls of storytelling. Also, a very well done, actually, introductory lecture, primarily, I think, targeted to filmmakers who are not familiar with virtual reality or virtual worlds and nonlinear storytelling. I have to admit that I was sitting there like, okay, is this news? And then it dawned on me that the fact that filmmakers are not going to be able to just sort of force the viewer to consume this one angle of the story is in fact news to a lot of people. And it had me sort of thrown back to the days of the Bay Area Video Coalition Producers Institute, where Virtual Guantanamo was developed, and we developed the Second Life component to Deep Down, PBS movie about mountaintop removal, which I'm going to link to the trailer. Still a really fantastic project, I think, what we did in Second Life. It was a similar sort of dynamic between traditional filmmakers who say, I just want to make my film, and I want the film to be broadcast on TV, and why do you sell me this digital add-on? It makes no sense. And it was like, this is transmedia and stuff like that. So, the question now is VR transmedia, or is transmedia also in all terms of all these things I will not discuss here in my intro rambling, because I will go to the first interview that we did shortly after the reminder that you can support this show. Interview with the head of strategy and Patrick Breitenbach, who subsequently, after I interviewed him, interviewed me and streamed that live. So 2 interviews, 3 actually, and a mystery guest, but 2 interviews from people from ZDF Digital Lab, their take on where the train is headed, where we are right now, and also specifically how in their view Germany is sort of situated vis-a-vis the United States, or the mecca of where stuff is happening, Silicon Valley. Of course, a lot of stuff is happening. Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference and Expo was happening. Kent Bai held a fabulous talk. The slides are available. I'm going to link to it if you're interested about the past, also historical context of virtual reality and how it impacts people when you have agency over your avatar. Second Life listeners, stay tuned, because the interviews that are going to follow are going to touch on Second Life and how Second Life falls into this ecosystem. Lastly, and I'm going to remind you at the end of the show, Virtual World's Best Practices of Education is also happening. It's actually wrapping today as we go to air. And I'll be talking about my experience covering and documenting Second Life for a decade now, in the context of education. What have I learned? The validity, the techniques, and how Second Life can be used for education. I'm certainly not an expert because I'm not an educator myself, but I looked over the shoulder of many educators and profiled a lot of different projects and collaborated with a lot of people who are actually in the classroom. And 3 p.m. Second Life time. So that's that. Here's the little spiel about sponsoring. You can sponsor this show with a voluntary subscription. If you're Second Life business, you can put an ad on there, and you know that you are supporting a really good cause. Please do that, and please let us know what's happening. Radio@DraxFiles.com, InWorld, Avatar DraxFiles, and Skype DraxFiles. So Joe will be back next week with a live show. We're going to do a live show in Second Life with a few selected guests, maybe some from Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference that were there, trying to get them. Let's go to Patrick Breitenbach from ZDF Digital Lab. Here he is introducing himself. Go ahead, Patrick, take it away.
Hi, my name is Patrick Breitenbach. I'm the head of innovation, strategic innovation and brand consulting at ZDF Digital, or as you would say, ZDF Digital.
So I'm originally from Germany, as the listeners know, and sometimes I pretend that the Germans don't understand what virtual reality is, and that public television, as much as I love it, their viewership is 70 plus, and they certainly don't know the difference between 360 and VR. But you are a different sort of subsection of the public broadcaster at ZDF Digital, and I was really impressed what I saw on the website, what you guys are working on. Are you making this content for the ZDF viewer who just wants to watch in-depth documentaries like myself, although I'm not 70 plus, but who do you make this content for first of all?
I think first of all we make it for ourselves in the end, because we are a VR lab right now. So that means yes, we are producing content for the ZDF as well, but there is, as you mentioned in your question, not so many viewers out there here in Germany who are watching this stuff, and you have to make the difference as well between 360-degree video and virtual reality, because I think virtual reality is much more in the beginning here. Nobody really knows what it is and what is the difference between 360 and virtual reality. So we are just experimenting a lot with this new technology, and we try to figure out new things, and we try to figure out how we have to make storytelling different than in other medium. And so yes, there are some projects going on, but it's all in a kind of experimentation phase or status. Right?
So yeah, you mentioned you're a lab, so this is also you have the luxury to experiment with things. Now, let me ask you. You call VR new, and oftentimes on the podcast us too, because of course with Oculus, arguably this new wave of VR started with the Oculus Kickstarter, and now we have headsets that are just more lightweight, but frankly virtual reality has been experimented with for a very long time.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think the first time people talked about virtual reality was in the 60s, so it was a kind of hippie thing in California where they start to think about it, like figures like Timothy Leary, who brought this thing.
He didn't need a headset, he just needed to pop some pills and then he's in virtual reality.
He all did this with his head, so...
Maybe we should all go back to, being more imaginative. Well, but so are you convinced that this time around it will catch on? The headsets are lightweight, but they're making me sweat. I mean, I work in this field for a living, but I cannot be. And people tell me, oh, I can be in the headset for like. I was just talking to a 3D builder. She was building in Sansar with the controls. So I've been in there for like 4 hours. I can't do that. Now, will this catch on? Will people buy the headsets? and then put it in the shelf like a 3D television or something, or never use it, or what do you?
Yeah, I think there are two factors who will drive the whole scene in the end. The one is the convenience, as you mentioned. So I can't have the headset on my head for, I don't know, an hour or something. You mentioned it, sweating, and you can't see anything anymore, and it's very heavy on the head. And the other factor is the price of the gadgets. And my hope is that right now, where PlayStation stepped into the market and brings out new technology, which is not so expensive anymore, and I think the gaming branch or market is also very important to drive the thing forward. So I think these two things are very important: price and convenience.
But if there's nothing compelling, that doesn't add the added value, let's say, from a traditional documentary, why would I use it? So that's what you guys are working on.
Yeah, that's right. So storytelling is very important, the content is very important, but in the end, I think right now it's a kind of kick-off phase here in Germany. So everyone who doesn't try it and puts on
That's the problem, yeah.
the headset, it's wow, immersive, and their content isn't such important at that point.
But that means you guys have to go to all these conferences and put the headset on.
Yeah,
you guys got to go in the subway or Hauptbahnhof here in Frankfurt and give people headsets.
And that's really the problem, because you can explain VR, but you have to experience it. And that's a problem why it's such a slow reach right now for this technology. But in the end, if you got this experiences and you are fixed to it, then you really have to put a lot of content afterwards, because then the people will need new stories, new experiences. And that's the reason why this whole movement should work in parallel. So there is a parallel of technology and a parallel of storytelling and content making, and this is drifting a little bit.
Now I'll give you a little idea.
Yeah.
I personally think that what should happen, and I want your opinion on this, is to open up the tools to create to everyone. Now, sometimes when I speak to the quote-unquote professionals, for example, in the music business, they're totally afraid of this, because they go like, oh shit, I own a recording studio, but then if the kids can do that in GarageBand, I'm going to lose like the basis for my business. So you, as professional storytellers, how do you feel about the proliferation of platforms that let everyone tell their story? I use the example, my grandmother could tell the story how they fled from what is now Poland, and they came down to Munich and all this, and you know, they could put that story together and kind of compete, if you will, with you guys. So are you guys afraid of this? You're like, oh my God, we gotta keep control over the content production pipeline. Give the users like little goodies so that they feel like they can do something, but not too much, so that you know.
So my personal opinion.
Yes,
so,
please.
I'm
not that ZDF opinion.
So there's a difference between ZDF and ZDF Digital, because we are a media production company for ZDF, but not only for ZDF. So that is one difference. But my personal opinion, because I have a blogger background. So I started in 2003 something in Germany with blogging, and my personal mindset is sharing knowledge, open knowledge. So I totally agree with you that we have to, in this phase, we have to share knowledge, learn from each other, to foster all the things together, and to make a bold move together. So this is very important, to share knowledge openly. So I'm a total fan of that.
And I'm so glad that you are in this position to remind folks that may be sitting in smoke-filled decision-making rooms and tell them, guys, we need to take the user, the viewer, more seriously and give them more than just sort of a movie tie. And here you can wear a Power Rangers avatar. Are you happy? It has to be more.
Yeah, definitely. So I work on the innovation field, and my mindset is you need a lot of people, diverse people, and the more people you have, the more diverse the ideas are, the more innovative outcome will be there. So I'm a total fan of collaboration, of crowdsourcing things. So I totally agree on that.
Are you not afraid? There's the name escapes me. There was an American author who wrote a book called The Cult of the Amateur. And it was a few years back, he was on every talk show, and I felt weirdly enough I understood his point was if we open everything, then people who don't know what they're doing, they're diluting the content so much that we lose culture. On the other hand, my son is 13, and sometimes he shows me stuff on YouTube where I go like, oh my God, dude, that dude should have like waited a little bit longer before he pushed the publish button, yeah? Okay, but then ultimately my personal opinion would be, we just have to retrain ourselves and kind of like say, okay, let's sleep over it before I publish it, right? But it shouldn't be an argument for like, here's the elite content creators, and the rest of you guys got to go to have a 4-year university degree before you're allowed to publish.
Yeah, it's totally bullshit to argument like this to have the control, because everybody starts like an amateur.
Yeah.
You have to start somewhere. You
Kubrick
weren't
did.
born as a professional, so you have to work on that and work on it. And the more people you have that can make sparring with you, that can share ideas with you, the more you get better. And in the end, if you have the argument that there's a lot of rubbish content out there, the users are also the filters of that. So in the end, it's an automatic filter in the crowd as well. So let the good content go up and the bad content will disappear somewhere. So let's create content together, and the best will survive in the end.
Can you briefly describe what we see? Since we're on the radio, we're not even in 2D, let alone 360. You have a station. What do you show through these? Those are Samsungs.
Yeah, the animal hats. So we have a fox hat, an orange fox hat. Inside there is a Samsung Gear, and there I think we show some 360 videos. So plain simple. And then we have our Vive station here. Right now you can not see, but I will describe. A man will now put on the Vive headset, and then we'll go into our special VR room we built for this conference.
I saw some pretty cool photogrammetry. We actually talked to the guy who took the pictures. What does that depict? That reproduction of some.
Yeah, we use this technology, photogrammetry, to rebuild rooms in a pretty good quality, I would say, and we experimented a lot with it. I think we started with laser stuff, but then we find out that the photogrammetry is much more better in quality. Now we built just a fantasy room, and you will find in that room some items which you can drop to your head, and then you will dive into the 360 videos we made with a German television late night show here. And then you can interact with, I think here right now we can see doors, you can teleport inside the room. And I think in the middle of the room is a engine. You can strap it out. You can look inside the engine. Then we have some Nerf guns, and I think what is called in English Dosen werfen, throwing balls at cans, like on the carnival or something like that.
On the pier or the boardwalk.
Yeah. So you can play around with the balls. You can shoot with the Nerf guns on things, and maybe you find some Easter eggs in there as well. So you can walk around in the room, teleport, and discover all the things we made up in there.
So, well, we talked about it earlier. It's something you have to try. My last question, I don't know if we got into this. Do you feel that conflating 360 with VR does that matter? Is it a big deal? There's a lot of people who say if we need to tell the audience, we need to educate the audience on the difference. Otherwise, there's wrong expectations and it's going to be ultimately really bad for adoption. What do you think?
I think 360 is a first step into VR because it's like a
marijuana before you get
stuff. Yeah.
And end up in Frankfurt on the Hauptbahnhof.
On the Hauptbahnhof, yeah. No, but I really think that this is the first important step to get into. Also with the devices we can see here, like the simple cardboard. And
you guys have nice ZDF branded cardboard views,
yeah? Mainzelmännchen, our
there's
mascots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think this is a very important first step because the immersion effect is already the same. Mm-hmm. This is the most wow effect in the end, that you have this look around effect, that you're inside something, inside a movie. And then the next step is for me, it's like, linear movies, cinema, and in the end, gaming, computer gaming. The interaction part is on top on that, and it makes it more interactive, more immersive. But I don't think you have to educate people in the end. I think you have to make the first step into the immersion, into the experience of immersion. Then the people get fixed on that. They really love it, and then they are interested in the next steps, because you have to make the first step.
But if they go if you tell them, wow, this is so cool, and then they grab our cardboard, and then the resolution is really bad, and then they go, what are you guys talking about? It's really no big deal, and then they never will try the next step.
Yeah, but in the end, I have a Daydream, Google Daydream as well. I think it's a pretty good quality for such a device, and every time I give that to other people who don't experience or that didn't experience that, they are wowed. It's not so important the quality and that you can see the pixels and things like that. It's more like the surrounding and that you're inside of it. So this is the most important.
It's the story too. I mean, that's what be my argument is, like, I can record a really compelling interview with a really shitty microphone, and if the interview is really compelling, nobody's going to ask me, hey, what microphone did you use?
Absolutely right. Yeah. So, but then we are again in the topic of content and content creating. So it's boring if you make inside here a 360 camera and put the conference, but it's more compelling than you dive with the whales and stuff like that. So it depends on the content as well.
All right, that was Patrick Breitenbach. I wanted to also get Eckhard Köberich, Ecki, the head of VR from ZDF, on the show. He actually asked me, or he told me that he applied for a Sansar invite and he didn't get in. And I said to him, if you grant me an interview, I'll get you in there. And then he disappeared. So I'm sorry, Ecki, you can't get into Sansar. No, of course not. It was very busy. Again, let me just remind folks that on the side, I forgot to mention, was also a little exhibit, a couple of booths from the University of Applied Sciences in Darmstadt, and they had a hilarious VR experience where you sit on a toilet. And then you see yourself sitting on a toilet and you're locked up and outside people are screaming, hey, you've been in there for hours. Come on, let us in. You're in that toilet, in that bathroom, sitting on an actual physical toilet. It's called VR Flush, linking to a little playthrough. And that was just really hilarious. Next interview, Niki Dostrovsky, who is a fairly recent hire at ZDF Digital, a director, special effects guy, writer, multi-talented guy who is working on concepts over there. And there's an overlap between, which I also forgot to mention the reason why we are there, was we met with Piet Wienander from Luxembourg, 1867, who listeners are familiar with, and with Phil Thoma, who filmed the first 360 video in Second Life. And we're all collaborating on the Luxembourg 1867 Transmedia project. And Niki Dostrovsky is also involved with that from the ZDF angle. Here is Niki introducing himself, and then we'll go dive deep. He also has a relationship with Second Life. I think a 5-minute relationship, which is kind of the average of how long noobs stay in there. Here's Niki.
My various talents are culminating in one point, and people like me with cross-media talents are in high demand right now.
Elaborate on this a little bit more, because I think it's a really important point that maybe gives also other people hope that even though they're gamers and wasting their lives, but that the mixture of skills is really important.
It's already in the days at the university. It was we were all directors and we all did movies together. So everyone did every job on set, and till this day, I at least understand each job and could do it in a very basic way. But unfortunately, I don't have to do it anymore. So I can talk to the guys who will do it, who are better than me. But I can at least use the correct terms and know what I can demand and what I can't demand. And this is the same now with virtual reality design. Since I'm a gamer, I know what is possible, what might not be possible, but I speak the lingo, so to say.
Do you feel that people who come from traditional linear television have a problem with interactivity? Do they understand it? Are they open to it? Do they want to go back to a time where they can force the perspective on people?
Depends on the person. In a general, maybe unfair thought.
It's a cliche. It's like a cliche.
Yeah,
like I'm thinking, like everybody at ZDF is going like, I don't want Tatort in VR. I want just regular Tatort, which is a German crime show.
Yeah. Crime might be a different problem, but also you could also do a crime show with different endings. So it could be interactive. I mean, there were projects when I was a kid, I think in the 80s, and on German television, where there was a crime series on the two main broadcasts, the public broadcast channels ARD and ZDF, in which you could, if you switch between the channels, you switch the perspective of. I don't think it was a branching story arc, but at least you could switch the story perspective and maybe even the endings. I can't remember correctly since I was a kid. If you pitch the TV guys something about TV, they always say, "No, media, a film about film. Nobody wants to see that." So there is a certain hesitation when it comes to non-traditional storytelling. But I think they're growing to be more open, since they're losing their audience to the internet.
75-year-old audience.
Yeah, either they are dying and getting older, or they're leaving television for good. So they're trying to get people back. And I even heard, but don't
quote me on that.
Call me that Netflix is going to try something branching and with multiple endings.
But then how would you execute it? I mean, everybody has a second screen now, so you have on the Netflix app maybe you dial a certain it's a multiple choice thing, and then it goes to a different thread of the story maybe.
Yeah, they did this on YouTube before. So basically, if you have Netflix also has kind of an ending screen with programmable links, I think. So they could do it like this, or just tell the user where to go next. It might be not for everybody, but for me personally, I always wonder, even back in the old adventure games, I always wonder what's the other path like. So
you
always
have to do it again. Yeah.
I should do it, but mostly I don't have the time. So there's always the nagging thought in the back of my head: what would have been the alternative? What did I miss?
If it's really well done, I would want to go back, and that's actually a cool thing thing because I could really go even deeper into the content and you know, people joke like, oh, 360 videos, you have to watch them 6 times because it's filmed with 6 GoPros. And I said, no, you got to watch it 12 times if it's filmed with a jump rig. But so maybe that is also a renaissance into deeper engagement, possibly. I think the first speaker today actually talked about deeper engagement or something. You know, that's kind of a marketing lingo that everybody talks about. But you're telling stories, so I mean, you're a storyteller. How can I imagine the discussions within the team there?
There are several aspects, like the lady from Bayerischer Rundfunk told us. There is the lean back versus lean forward approach to stories. There is the...
What does that mean?
Yeah, if I just want to lean back in my couch...
Chair, my lazy boy chair, yes.
And just consume TV and be entertained and not to engage in the stories and make decisions and choose my own destiny. So writing fiction for VR, I mean, everybody's talking about it. The big... the challenge is to find stories that engage you and that are also possible to firstly walk inside, look around inside, and also the problem with if I don't look in the direction the director wants me to look, where the story happens, how does that work? So is the story paused while I look away? Are the actors waiting somehow behind me, or do they just scream and shoot, and if I turn around I missed it? There might need to be like a computer app background where video is playing, but where also some sensitive areas, your viewing direction is taken into account, so that either the characters react to you based on your viewing direction, or that really the action pauses as long as you're admiring the ceiling or something. So that can't be done on traditional TVs or with just normal 360 video.
So we're talking about also the issue of distribution. Again, I talked to Patrick earlier, and he, actually the woman that's behind the counter here at the ZDF Digital VR Lab right now, Yvonne, she said, I said, how are you going, I'm paraphrasing, how are you going to reach the ZDF audience? This was my first question. He says, well, first of all, we're not ZDF, and second of all, we're not trying to reach them. She didn't phrase it that way. I phrase it a little bit more provocative, like, you know, it's over for them. They're going to be happy with their traditional linear documentaries, but we're going into a new era.
That's true, but I think when, just a small story, when I put my VR headset on a Vive, when I put my mother in it, she's 73, she was fascinated. She was a bit scared, and it was just Google Earth VR, and the size of the Cologne Cathedral scared her a little when she was standing in front of it. But the fascination is there, and I think the immersion works in every age. So
I completely agree, but you have to get them to the delivery device. So
they have to put it on. So they need their grandchildren or children to guide them. But
I got my dad a Ricoh 360 Ricoh Theta.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, but VR is also in the first ages, in the first years of its bloom. So the cool stuff will happen in the future. So the ZDF viewers of tomorrow and in the next years will be educated to use VR.
I'm always fascinated to ask people who love games, who have a real deep understanding of games, what they think about Second Life. And you can be very honest. Lots of our listeners are Second Life fanatics, and I say that in the best sense of the word. Mm-hmm. They will defend this wonderful world, as will I, to the death.
Fanatics. Okay.
To the death. We're very open-minded, except for one area. But
My view is quite biased because maybe my total usage hours of Second Life is 1.5 hours. So I did research for an upcoming project, and I was a bit disappointed in the performance, basically. But that could have been the problem of this specific area I was in. So in general, I really like the idea of an user-generated world. But I'm more looking forward to the next iteration in VR because it
higher visual fidelity and a stable performance.
yeah, and the immersion. I mean, it's nice to look at the world, but to be in the user-generated world could be.
Okay, this is great that you bring this up. But I would now say, as I'm enthusiastic as the next guy about VR, I have my Vives, blah blah blah. Sansar is exciting, and so on. But I still read paper books, and the argument can be made and should be made in my estimate. I'm convinced that a book is also immersive. Now, I think it may be problematic if we. I said this earlier. If we say immersion, it's only immersion when there is a movement tracking HMD and other devices. Otherwise, there is no. You cannot feel immersion. I feel immersed in a good book. I am honestly concerned that the next generation will lose the ability to be excited about something that is less than 8K.
The difference is, in my opinion, is with the body reaction to the immersion. Just like the lady from Bayerischer Rundfunk said, there is always a fourth wall. With every good film, with every good book, you are consuming the content. To a certain extent, you're immersing yourself in this world, but there's you don't duck if in the book there's a sword is swung at the main character. You don't involuntarily duck while you're sitting in front of the book, maybe in front of the TV. But
that's correct because it's linear. But when we talk about games, I mean, would you say the same thing about games just because they're in desktop mode and not in HMD? Because I would argue if I'm in a game, if that's World of Warcraft or Second Life or whatever it is, let's talk about role-playing games. I can be very immersed, but the defining factor if I'm immersed or not is if I have investment in the community, if I'm part of a guild in World of Warcraft, if I build a world in Second Life, I feel immersed because when I go in there, I know the people, and that kind of investment to me is stronger than immersion sometimes, no?
That's different. For me, it's a different kind.
Go
of
into
immersion.
Fallout. Let's just say that.
Yeah, of course.
Are you not immersed in Fallout?
I am, but with my brain. It's not as direct and involuntarily as VR. When I was asked by my colleagues to just to stick my head inside a geometry, to look on the back face of the texture. I did computer graphics all my life. I knew all about it, but just the hesitation, the bodily hesitation, the skin in my face crawled with anxiety that I will hurt myself if I put my head through it. And no matter how
you cannot control it intellectually, even if the intellectual part says those are just textured, they are rendered at 2000 by whatever.
And all the science
the
behind
bump
it.
maps are pretty good.
And still there is a bodily immersion which is not possible with any other medium I experienced before. It's really involuntarily. If the big T-Rex jumps you, you jump back, even if you know there is nothing there. They're just pixels, and that's a different level of immersion for me. But the what is still lacking is the brain immersion, because there are not as many, maybe not even one game that immerses me intellectually. If there was a World of Warcraft or Fallout, they will come.
Or a world.
The next year.
A world like the Oasis, in fact, or something like that. That will be my. It's not a criticism. We're in a transitional phase, or maybe we're always in a transitional phase until we die. Could make that argument. Sorry to be so depressing, but. All these things, like for example, you were at the roller coaster here, the Samsung Gear exhibit with the chair. it is literally what it is. It's a roller coaster, and it's fun to go on a roller coaster. But it's the same as fun as maybe eating a Big Mac or something. But there's no really nutritional value beyond that. It's like I'm satisfying myself really quickly with a quick thing, and then that's it. And I'm just concerned for the kids that our attention span. But you're working on an interesting project that has to do with history. We don't, if we don't have to go into detail. I don't know, where am I going with this diatribe? Will there be a metaverse where everything is interconnected, where we're actually really invested in, beyond just, oh, that's just a roller coaster and then I put it back down? Maybe we have to affect the world. We need to be able to affect the world in order to be invested in it beyond just looking at it.
My fear is if there is a perfect copy and controllable perfect copy of this world, then we really get into Matrix territory where people won't go back into the normal world. And I think psychosis is going to be a huge problem in the next 10 years.
I did civil service in a psychiatric institution, and it's funny because now we're talking about augmented reality stuff flying around. We had patients like that who saw that stuff without an AR device.
Yeah, and there's going to be more of them, I'm afraid. And I'm like with every other medium in the last 50 years, the technical development is faster than the education of the consumer. With the internet, it was much worse than television, and I think with VR, it's going to be much worse than with any other medium. So. There was on another VR conference. There was a guy who told about yet another conference he attended, and he talked to other guys. And instead of just being developers and filmmakers, he also encountered several psychiatrists and several drug and addiction specialists, counselors, because they said, that will be the next big thing. Much stronger, 10 times stronger than everything we encountered before. And with my limited experience with the Vive and all this is mostly the free Steam stuff.
It's a candy store.
Yeah,
you put a 12-year-old in a candy store, and you say, I'm going to be gone for 2 hours. The 12-year-old will have eaten all the candy. Yeah. Then he will have a stomach ache. Then he will say, I will never do that again. Yeah. And then an hour later, when the stomach ache is gone, he will do it again.
But what's wondering? Nein, was mich wundert, nein.
What I'm wondering about, or what I don't understand.
What I don't understand is I bought the Vive in December, and I think till the end of January I maybe was in it every day. Mm-hmm. But since then, I haven't put it on. So for
saturation effect.
Yeah, because they are not lasting experiences. There are some things that I will return to, like the zombie training simulator. It's just fun and relaxing to
because
shoot
you don't have
zombies.
any friends. See, but I go into Second Life every day because my friends are in there.
Yes,
we have interesting discussions, and those are real people. And unless we have a social VR environment, it will not be sticky. It will just be sort of quick little in and out type things.
Yeah, but then even if you're not into multiplayer, there are just no stories. Mm-hmm. There are two games. The Solus project, which is a conversion, I think, of a traditional game into VR, and the other one has such a stupid title. I always Starseed Library Episode 1 something. The title is just too long. And these are two games that they really created a world. You can walk in and experience, and they have a certain draw, but there's again the problem of locomotion. So I'm not really happy about this porting motion, and when I try the normal one, I do get a little bit sick. Not that much, and I think it lessens, but
You mean the execution, how the game is executed, or do you mean the lack of ability for you to walk around? Let's say you have a treadmill. Would you wish you had a treadmill and had more immersion that way?
Yeah, it always kicks me out of the immersion if I just teleport several meters forward. So
you're basically a drug addict who started smoking a couple of joints, but now you're saying like, where's my needle, basically?
Yeah, I need the better stuff. No, it's. I mean, it's a technology aimed at immersion, at total immersion, and it just hampers it. And I'm looking forward to what they do with Fallout 4, because if they want to convert the game that is out right now for traditional PCs, they have to think about locomotion, that will be the next big step. But still, if the big budget games with the good stories come out, then there will be they will draw me back. But right now they're mostly tech demos. They're very short, so maybe another half a year, and then there will be games which I will return to gladly.
Niki Dostrovsky, we're linking to some of his work on the blog. And let me finish up the show with a mystery guest, because there was a guy running around the festival, looking at him and going like, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? Do I know him from California? Do I know him from Germany? And, after a couple hours, it goes like, oh yeah, I know him. He is Thorsten Schütte, director of a Frank Zappa documentary called Eat That Question. And the reason why I recognize him, because I saw all the interviews he did for the film, many of them with Moon Zappa. And you guys know that I'm a Zappaholic. And so I approached him like a crazy super fan. He didn't run away, though. I was like, are you Thorsten Schütte? I recognize you. And he was really kind enough to talk to me a little bit about the movie. This has absolutely nothing to do with virtual reality, but I'm going to play it anyway because I can, because this is a podcast, and I'm the producer of this podcast, and Joe isn't here, so I can do Zappa, which has nothing to do with Second Life or with. Well, actually, I do have a couple Zappa shirts in Second Life, so there's an angle.
Hi, my name is Thorsten Schütte. I'm a documentarist, filmmaker, and I'm working for a film school, and that's why I'm here, because we're looking into what's happening on the market, and we have quite a lot of students that are, having an interest in VR, interactive media in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I saw you with Moon Zappa. The big question here that I want to ask you, how do you feel about this, the issue between Dweezil and Amit and within the family? You want to take a position?
Yes, I can talk about it, because we also ran into this conflict. When the film. Where can I start? Let me, maybe you add it here.
Because you worked for 8 years on the film, so obviously Gail was still alive.
Yes. Let me start there. Gail was the key person for us all through the years. We didn't talk to the children. I met Moon and Diva in between, and also Dweezil at a concert in 2010. But they were not the representatives of the family trust back then. It was always Gail that we were talking to, and but then, as some people might know, Gail went ill, and we heard that it's not looking very good. So we knew that, in a way, her days on Earth are limited. And only a few weeks before she passed away, we came to Los Angeles to see the film together with some of the kids, with her, and with family friends. And as you can imagine, it was a very moving moment. And then the next time we came to Los Angeles, Gail was still alive, but her assistant told us that Amit now has taken over business, and that was the first time I met Amit, and he was very touched, very moved by the whole situation going on in the house, and then he had to jump in and watch the film again, but also that was a very, very warm encounter. And only later we found out that Gail's will has caused a lot of conflict within the family, which is, there's from what I read on the newspapers, is that the will has disrupted the family, and there's an argument now about the name, etc., etc. The only thing I can say about it is that it seems the only thing everybody can agree upon in the family is that they all like our film, which makes us very happy, But I'm very sad, and I really hope that they find a way to get back together again.
I just want to throw this in there for people who don't follow the Zappa stuff as crazy as I do. There's a big rift, and Dweezil was barred from using the name and the mustache logo on the merchandise, and he has to give the revenue from the merchandise that he's using on the Zappa Plays Zappa tour to the Zappa Family Trust. And there was an open letter in the New York Times, and then a response. So there's a lot of Schlammschlacht, wie man auf Deutsch sagt, in the public's eye. And Dweezil has now renamed the current tour Dweezil Zappa Plays whatever the fuck he wants. The Cease and Desist tour, yeah. So, but you're saying, so they all like the film, so they could agree on that, which is good.
Yeah, let me add one thing. I mean, now that you are trying to also explain to the listeners of what is going on, I actually feel extremely sad that this whole thing went actually public. I think this is family matters, and I think, yes, it's about celebrities, and we would like to know what is going on there, and then the yellow press likes to jump on it because there's this rumor and there's that rumor. I think in the end, it will be very difficult for us to really judge what is going on there, and it will. I mean, also, it's none of our business in a way. I would have wished, that it never had gotten that publicity, and that they could have sorted out it in private, because I think all of this global attention, and this bashing and the fans taking sides on this and that, I think it does not really contribute to solving the problem.
I want to ask you, when you invest, and I think people don't know that, how much time you have to invest when you're a documentary filmmaker. I think a lot of people think from the outside, oh, it's such a glamorous world, we can make movies and then we put them out there and then we get success, and maybe sometimes there's no money in it, but at least we have sort of this outcome. I've been involved in a documentary about lynching. The podcast listeners know that, from Jackie Olive. That's in the making for 6 years. It's still not out. We got Danny Glover. We got really cool 45-minute cut. Who knows if it's ever going to see the light of day. Talk a little bit about this process. I mean, it takes so long. Why?
Well, there's many reasons why documentaries take a lot of time. Sometimes, it's just cumbersome to find financing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's cumbersome to get permission and rights cleared. In our case, I think I was just a nobody to Gail and the Family Trust. I mean, it took me some time to knock on the door and get a foot in the door and then get my head through the door. And I can understand that. I really, yes, people say that Gail was quite a litigious person, there was lawsuits here and there, but in the course of the years when we got to know each other, I also learned to understand that there are good reasons why she is so protective, that there is also responsibility in curating and taking care of the artistic and creative integrity of the artist. So these things takes time. The other issue was rights clearances and bringing all those materials together. Yes, some people would say, they're all on YouTube. Well, yes, they are in very poor resolution, from some bad VHS NTSC tape copies there. But try to find the masters, try to find the ownership of who owns the masters, try to find, yes, music clearances was a little bit easier in this case because it was all with the family and Cobalt Universal. So these things take time, and over those 8 years, luckily, I was also busy with other things. So you have to learn how to cook on various plates, so to say, because and it takes a lot of patience in the end.
And that was a little excerpt of the interview I did with Thorsten Schütte. We'll do some more some other time because we're running out of time on the show today. Very briefly, let me remind you, and we have tons of links, by the way. Hope you guys are going to get into the discussion. Look at the links and listen to those interviews and put in your 2 cents. Let me remind you that if you catch this show before 3 p.m. Second Life time, you can hop in World and hear my interview that I'll be giving there about what I learned about education in virtual worlds through my documenting Second Life for the last decade. Jesus Christ, is that a long time? I'm not an educator, but I looked over the shoulders of many educators, been involved as a consultant and a documentarian of many educational projects in Second Life. There's a whole wealth of information that I am planning to impart on the listeners. And next week, we'll have excerpts of that as well on the podcast. That's it for the show. Let me just end with, well, underneath we hear the German version of Frank Zappa's Montana, because we just talked about Zappa a little bit. So I get the opportunity to replay that tune that we did in the mid-90s. I think I played only bass on that, but I transcribed that middle part, which was not so easy. I transcribed the other parts as well, but the middle section is tough. Sansar is moving along. There will be, possibly by the time you guys listen to this show, there will be a few more Sansar videos out. There will be Drax Files number 44 will be out very soon about education at Istanbul University. Again, I mean, I've been talking about this. Took me a much longer time this time around to finish that episode because of all these parallel assignments. Joe will be back next week. Also, Silicon Virtual Reality Conference usually has these incredibly interesting panel discussions up. High Fidelity announced a NPC system with a partnership. You guys got to look into that. But first and foremost, I will see you guys around in Second Life. So here's Montana, Zappa, in German, with yours truly, Julian Mack, Tom Walsh on drums. I forgot the name of the keyboarder. Jesus. Is that lame or what? Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Wieder Chinesentouren, Gletscherbrisen unter Mars, Bier vom Fass, checken wir's ab, sitzen wir's aus, in einer Viertelstunde kommt vielleicht der Roberto vorbei und dann kaufen wir uns ein bisschen Gras, er kann mit dem Grasen nicht schwer sein. Anders Gras. Schaut euch das Gras an, anders Gras. Und dann geht's raus zum Starnberger See, auf die Wies und Seeshaupt, am Raddampferpier. Und wenn dann die Rentner nicht schauen, bauen wir uns so auf. Schlimm hinzu. Zünden an und reichen an um. Wir haben keinen Job. Und wir wollen auch keinen. Deswegen beten wir zu unserem Herrn. Heiliger St. Florian, zündst man Joint und nicht das Auto an. Heiliger St. Florian. Windel brauchen wir's auch. Man kann im Freistaat sich sowas schon gut erlauben. Mei, sagt mir, jetzt kommt schon Gras. 6 Weizen und 2 Ostern, dann geht man nach. Mitternacht in das Meer, so die Handlach nach der Tür an Holzbirkenling. In das Meer, so die Deppen von den Gästen zum Obi stehen. Die Blätter spüren. So schaut bei uns meistens aus. Und sei es, das hängt jetzt an ein bisschen blöd und so. Ist uns das egal, was wir tun, fängt an, wir sind hier und ihr legt uns am Arsch. Wir trinken's Bier ohne Hast, weil man braucht kaum glauben. Es könnte einen Versorgungsengpass geben. Aber sollte es mal passieren, brauchen wir schon Schmankerl, die uns schwer zu uns nehmen. Denn man wäre ja ein Depp, hätten wir alles auf eine Korkenspur. Gerade deswegen haben wir uns das Gras gekauft, damit wir uns auch ein zweites Standbein haben. Dann haben wir immer noch an Spaß, denn durch die Krise bringt uns Gras. Freitag sitze ich in der U-Bahn und meine Endstation, das ist die Fraunhofer Straße. Von da lauf ich zu mein Spätzlein, das erweckt schon mal einen Durst. Drum schütt ich mir's der halbe in Kopf vor der Abend und fort. So jung wie wir sind, kommt man nimmer zusammen. Da könnt man uns gleich noch Tüten aufbauen, Hust dann feiern. Heiliges Novia. Ja, du weißt, wen ich mein. Sitzt mit meinen Tüten da. Ja, nicht mein Auto, die Tüten. Heiliges Novia. Na, wie ich schon gesagt habe, die Tüten nicht auf. Meinst du, das wäre ein Zippo oder was? So als Heiliger muss man sich so leisten können. Andererseits so Benziner, die schmecken ja auch scharf. Ich meine, gestern war ich beim Kiosk hier. Da habe ich mir so einen Jeep gekauft, das ist voll geil. Aber das hat mir so einen Arsch gestohlen.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, Bay City You Know for Kids, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Death Row Designs. Thumbnail by Justin Esparza. Contact the show via Skype, Draxfiles, Avatar Draxfiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.